Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss was test driving cars. And this is one of the things that when I found the general consensus online, I was very surprised. I thought people were testing cars and apparently not. Probably the replies that I got from one of my comments in one video were from salespeople all the time, but they were all saying that if you don't plan to buy that day, that's wasting their time. This actually happened to me once. I actually tested a car. You can see the link in the description down below for my horror story with the dealership. But I've heard of some people that they just go to test drive the car, and if you don't want to see numbers, then the dealers tell you that you're just wasting their time. Sometimes the dealers want to pull your credit if you even test drive the car, which you should never do, by the way. I think that's stupid. And sometimes dealers even judge you on how you dress and how you look before they even let you test drive the car. See, there is this kind of a special aura among car salespeople that they think that if they don't make a sale that day, if you're not there in order or intending to buy, then you're wasting their time. Whereas in any other situation, you go and test things without having to buy them. I think going to a dealership just to get a joyride, I think that's wrong. Don't do it. If you're just doing it for fun, I think that's bad. You should be testing as many cars as you want. So in my case, I was in between a Mustang and a Lexus IS. I'll explain in another video why. But for that, I actually went to different dealerships and I tested 4 different Mustangs and 2 Lexus. And I wasn't intending on buying any of those. I was testing the car to see if I like it, to see if it was the thing. Because I'm putting down a lot of money, over $50,000 on the car. So I am going to see what I'm getting for my money. And I know some salesmen would say that I wasted those people's time. Well, I needed to see. And here's the thing. There's a statistic out there that says that over 60% of people regret their car purchase. That is because people don't test as many cars as they should to make that decision. So if you're deciding to get a new car, do not be embarrassed. Do not be ashamed of just testing the car, because you are going to buy a car eventually. You may buy the car from the dealership and you may not. So yes, for used cars, you should always test the car. And for new cars, you should always test cars and test other cars to compare, because us as consumers, we don't buy as many cars in our lifetime. So usually you don't know what you're missing until you have the car with you. Not every car is perfect. Some cars have flaws, even if you buy them brand new. And here's another thing. When you test drive a car for the first time, if you're driving a car that wasn't great, once you sit in that brand new car, everything is amazing and everything is awesome. But that should not be your decision point, because going from a car, like if you own a rust bucket and you're switching to a brand new car, just by the fact that you are inside that brand new car is going to make you want to buy it. That's why I always suggest that you test at least 3 different cars, 3 different models at minimum, just so you can compare and see if you're truly committed to buy that car. Because at least in the United States, you're probably going to live with that car for 3 years. Now, here's the other thing why people tend to not want to test drive cars, especially if they're new. It's usually because they're afraid they're going to like it and buy it on the spot. That is personally one of my fears whenever I go test drive a car. Because when I decide to buy a car is at the moment that I have the money. So I was a little bit afraid that if I test drove either the Mustang or the Lexus, that I would end up buying either or, just because I test drove it and fell in love with it. Because when you first test drive, it's very hard to explain, but I'm sure everybody can relate. Everybody that has tested a brand new car, you all can relate of that feeling of, I must have these things. You have to summon will and, have a plan like I did. I told myself I wasn't going to buy a car at least until I tested 3 of them. The reason being is the first time you sit on the car, you're happy. It's amazing. Everything is brand new. And first of all, you don't even know where anything is, especially if you're buying from a different brand. I was coming from Toyota into a Mustang. I didn't even know where anything was, especially with the new Mustangs that have all things like digitally and stuff. So I was like, overwhelmed with all the new things that you have to play with. Not so much with the Lexus, because there's a little bit of a relation in between those two, but I was overwhelmed. So the first time that I test drove it, I was like, this is amazing. I didn't know where anything was. And here's the other thing. Usually when you test cars, salesmen are actually very coy into where are you going with the car. So they usually try to take you with a very small ride. I personally try to push them into like, hey, let's go through here, because I usually go to local dealerships to test cars. So I tell them, hey, let's go through here's areas that I know where I want to test the car, especially with like bumpy roads and everything, just to feel if the car is going to be comfortable or not, because this time the car was going to be my daily. So that's the other reason why I kind of went into 3 different cars. Like the first car was to feel that brand new emotion that you feel, that overwhelmness, if that's a word, that you get when, you know, all the brand new things. The second time, you already know, you've already sat down into the car and you know you're just going to drive, you're just going to enjoy the ride, see if it's comfortable, see if it's the kind of ride that you want. In my case, I wanted a car with a little bit of power. So the first 2 Mustangs that I tested, there was a little bit of a traffic on the road, so there wasn't much chance to kind of like push it. I didn't floor it, of course. I would never floor a brand new car, but just to push the car, because I wanted to see if this was a fun car to drive. So I did that on my 3rd try with the Mustangs. I did it with the Lexus because they kind of had like a private street behind the Lexus dealership, which I thought was pretty cool. The other thing that you have to be aware of when you're test driving a car, you politely tell the car salesman, if it's just you, usually I've tested cars with myself and my wife. So when my wife is in the car, they're usually pretty quiet. But whenever they're just with me, when my wife is not there, they tend to start talking. I usually politely tell them like, hey, I want to get a feel for the car so we can talk it over once we are done. And I've never had a problem with that, to be honest, but they tend to be pretty talkative at the beginning. So I don't know if you've bought a house yet, but when I went to buy a house, we saw a ton of houses. And that is because you have to get a feeling for the house. Is this a place that you're going to live for many, many years? You're putting a ton of money into those places. And I put buying a car in the same category as buying a house. This isn't like buying a TV where you just go to Best Buy, test it, see that's oversaturated, take it home. This is a big purchase, and you have to need, and you should be thinking not once, not twice, but at least 3 times about what kind of car you're going to buy, especially if it's used, what kind of model you're going to buy, what kind of package do you want on this car, and see how it compares to the rest. It's not the same, and when my Lexus gets here, we'll have a discussion on how it's not the same as seeing a bunch of reviews online till you sit in the car. When you sit in the car, it's so much different. You may have seen tons of reviews, because there are tons of reviews telling you how a car drives, technical reviews about the engine, reviews about daily driving. It's never, ever going to tell you how you feel about a car like you testing the car. So I'm curious if anybody has any crazy stories when they go testing a car. Like I said, I left my horror story down below. That was like the first time ever that I went to buy a car here in the United States. It was not good. So if you want to see mine, it's in the description down below. Leave me your story down in the comment section. I would love to hear it. Subscribe and leave me a like. That really helps the channel to get out there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.